My name is Beth, and this is my strange story. So I guess it was about 5 years ago. My husband and I, and our daughter, she was about maybe two and a half at the time, we purchased a new home in this really small, historic, charming little town. And the home itself is just beautiful. It was built in 1913, and I remember when we were touring the home, we just fell in love with all the charm and the uniqueness. So much of it is still original. In fact, we even have one of the steps that leads up to the second floor. If you look closely, you can see that it opens and it becomes this little hiding compartment that we always just assumed was probably from, days of Prohibition, because there's all sorts of those sorts of nooks and crannies here. But anyway, when we first moved into the home, everything was normal for the most part. I wouldn't say that it was like a haunted house, but we did notice, the occasional door would open without cause. Something that was completely latched would just pop open. And you think, old house, old bones, old frames, things just happen. And we would notice too, on occasion, things would go missing and then, suddenly reappear. Keys would go missing, items. I can remember one time I was in the kitchen making a snack for my daughter and fixing her some blueberries, and one had dropped on the floor, and I heard it drop. And I looked around and looked down, and I couldn't find it. And, I looked under the stove, I looked under the fridge, thinking like, I'm losing my mind here. Like, where did this blueberry go? Anyway, I couldn't find it. So I went back to making her snack. And then I remember, I turned from the counter to go take it out to her in the dining room. And I took one step, and sure enough, squish, like I stepped right on the blueberry. And it was right in the middle of the floor, which was gross because I was in bare feet. But it was just little stuff like that. And it's easy to pay attention to, but it's also easy to pass off and ignore, which is kind of what we did. We just ignored it. But then one night, I remember we went to bed, and like I said, my daughter was about two and a half at the time. So we still had a monitor in her room, one of those baby video monitors. So, we could keep an eye on her because she was, I think she, was just transitioning to like her toddler bed, anything like that. And while we were sleeping in the middle of the night, her baby monitor started playing very, very loudly, like right next to the side in our room, this song from her music box that sat on her dresser. And it freaked us both out. My husband sat up in bed, I sat up. I thought like either she had gotten out of bed or, somebody was in the house. And so he, jumps out of bed and he runs into her room, and she's not asleep. She doesn't even hear it. And so he came back into our room, and I said, what's happening? What's going on? Is she awake? And he said, no. And I said, well, what's with the music box? And he said it was barely, open. Like, he wasn't even sure how it was even playing. It was open so little. And I just remember in that moment, like, for the first time, I was afraid. Like, it was too much. I was scared. I couldn't explain it. I know what I'd heard. He had heard it. And I just remember, I just sat there in bed, and I even said it out loud. I said, this is too much. You've gone too far. Like, enough. It needs to stop. And, my husband got into bed, and we laid down, and we went back to sleep. And, that was that. And to be honest with you, ever since then, it's been pretty quiet here. There's still the occasional door that pops open randomly, or, a few things here and there. But to be honest with you, it's mostly company or guests that, see those things happening more than us. So I don't know. I mean, maybe something or someone really was listening that night and took me at my word. All I know is I'm glad that it doesn't happen anymore. So yeah, that's my strange story.